We have hit that part of the offseason, so instead of talking about signing Jamal Cain to a two-way contract, all due respect to you, Mr. Cain, we're going to chat with Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel and do a summer vibe check today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is July 28th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we are doing a summer vibe check. We're checking in with Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel to discuss everything about the Orlando Magic, from Summer League to their crazy offseason, and what we have to look ahead to in the 2026 season. This will be a multi-part episode. We went for about an hour, probably going to stretch this into 3 episodes, but we'll definitely do at least 2, depending on how I edit this, because I edit after I record my intro here. Before we get to any of that, though, we do want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day. Make Locked On Magic a bigger part of your day by making it a daily part of your day. Be one of our Orlando Magic dailies, listening to our podcast every single day of the week. We are in off-season mode officially now, so I'm only guaranteeing 3 episodes per week. We'll see how long that lasts, but be part of our Orlando Magic daily crew as we go 5 days a week, starting a little bit after Labor Day. Certainly when we get to Eurobasket, we'll be going a little bit harder as well. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I don't want to sit here and take up too much time because I had a great conversation with Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel last week. We recorded last Thursday. We chatted about everything from this offseason, kind of what lessons we learned from the 2025 season, where Paolo Banchero is going to grow next, what Jason saw and heard at Summer League, the Magic's new expectations. We get into everything over the course of the next hour of conversation, a little bit less than an hour of conversation. So I don't want to waste too much time. I want to get right to it. Here he is, the one, the only Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel. And I'm joined now by our good friend from the Orlando Sentinel. It's Jason Beatty, back from Vegas, back from a long season, readying for the next long season. But Jason, been a week since, been a little bit more than a week since you came back from Vegas. We'll get to that. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. I had another good time in Vegas. Now we're in the slow part of the summer, get some time off here coming up here, but it's kind of been nonstop ever since, I guess, really the Desmond Bane trade. That kind of kicked the offseason wheels into motion a little bit, because then you had pre-draft, the draft, free agency, and then Summer League, and there's all these different moves and whatnot. So now we're kind of really slowing down here a little bit. So I'm looking forward to some time off, but it's been a lot of fun so far this offseason.
Until we were recording this on Thursday afternoon, I am planning to run this the following Monday. So unless the LeBron James trade has happened yet already, we're just all kind of waiting on bated breath for that, I guess. It's not happening. That's not a thing that's going to happen, guys. Although it's NBA, so who knows? We'll get to all the goings and happenings of the summer, and obviously, like, it's all like tied into this. But you were the one in Vegas. You were there on the ground. We're not going to talk more specifically about that Summer League team because it was a Summer League team. But watching on the broadcasts, it very much felt like the Magic were one of the talks of the summer of the league of the NBA kind of gathering, and saying like, well, what is this Magic team going to do? Are they in that contending class? You were on the ground. You were talking to the Magic luminaries that were there and everything else. What do you feel like the vibes are of the team as we enter this new era with Paolo wrapped up, Franz wrapped up, Desmond Bane now on the roster, and the expectations this team is facing?
Yeah, it seemed like every single day I walked into either the Thomas and Mack Center or the Cox Pavilion. First of all, that logo, that rebranded logo, really stood out. I mean, I know this is like the smallest thing of all the things we're going to talk about, but like that feels so long ago. And when you see that big poster with all the logos on it, the Magic that alternative logo that they have, because they use one of the other logos on that poster that's on ESPN.com and whatnot, where you see the standings. That really stood out to me. I think that like almost kind of set the tone. Like here we are as the Magic, new flashy. We have the pieces, we have the young guns, we got the coaching staff additions now. We've got the free agents. We made the big trade that kicked off the summer of trades. And I think when you put all that together, it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute, there is this team in the East. You know, they talk so much about the wide open East, and you look at this Magic team that really seems primed to be able to make something special here. And I think every single day, you know, whether it was Jeff Waltman on the broadcast or Jamal Mosley joining NBA Today or Jalen Suggs joining broadcasts, like it seemed like they being, I guess, the powers that be of the large national media, ESPN, whoever, wanted to give a lot of attention in a positive manner, in a positive light, about this Magic team. Udonis Haslem gave a lot of high remarks. Bobby Marks said a lot of things about them. I think it just seemed like every single day there was something new and exciting about this Magic team that people wanted to talk about them. And of course, there was a lot of attention on Jason Noah in that regard. But I think it was like, if you were to talk about 4 or 5 national topics, the Magic were always in that mark. And it just seemed fitting that along with all of that, here's this awesome new logo that sticks out just like the rest of everything else the Magic have done this summer.
Yeah, it's funny how the timing, I mean, like you mentioned how long ago that Magic logo reveal was, like Contavious Caldwell-Pope.
I mean, literally the entire landscape has changed.
Yeah. It really, I mean, it really does feel that way. Let's just dive kind of into it then. How much do you feel Desmond Bane and just his presence, and like Tyus Jones is part of this too, and like Jalen Suggs played only 6 games with, as they mentioned, like ad nauseum every time the Magic are on Summer League, like 97 total minutes, 6 games between Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, and Franz Wagner together. How different does this team feel? Like how much of an impact is this acquisition of Bane gonna be in your mind to what this team can accomplish?
I think it really speaks to how they sort of made a mistake signing Contavious Caldwell-Pope about a year ago. And this trade and these movements they've made kind of undid that. Now, how it looks on the court, if they can stay healthy, that's all to be determined, of course. Health is obviously the biggest factor in all of this, right? As we learned last season. But I really think when they signed KCP last summer, yes, there was a lot of excitement around it. Yes, he's a 2-time champion. Yes, he's a great person, as we know, person and player. But I think looking back on it, it really wasn't the right type of fit for a number of reasons. One, they truly believe, Desmond Bane is not a point guard, but he can handle the ball. But they truly believe for the second year in a row that Jalen Suggs is going to be the guy for at least for that starting lineup to start the year. And I think that says a lot about their belief in Jalen, but it also says that, look, that's true, but here's Desmond Bane, who can also carry the ball plenty, who can also, play make plenty as well. And of course, obviously, Paolo and Franz are going to be point forwards, and everyone's going to be carrying the ball. It's going to be by committee. But I think it really goes to show that where Contavious Caldwell-Pope might not have been the type of addition they needed, Desmond Bane is like, as Jeff Waltman said, if you were to design the type of player that they needed, it's really him. And I think, there was some, as we've talked about before, as you've said, there was some sticker shock at first. But I really think when you look at not only the initial context that came with the draft picks, but what Memphis has done since then with that move, it's pretty clear that the Magic got away with a really good addition here, that they didn't really give up a lot because Cole Anthony's no longer a Memphis Grizzly. They've already traded some of their picks away. And who knows how long KCP will be in Memphis, but at least a year for sure. I think it just seems like it's such an exciting fit because he can not only shoot at a high level, but also, play make and run the offense and help them out so much, more so than KCP, where KCP is going to be, I think we're going to see KCP bounce back. I think he's going to go back to that average and should be a 40% 3-point shooter. But the difference is he's only going to be taking 4 or 5, where Desmond Bane's going to be taking 8 to 9. And, when Jalen Suggs is out there, he also can take a lot of threes. And it's not just the 3 points. It's also the ability to get in the paint and control the ball. And I think also something that plagued the Magic the last couple of years, and it's also a big reason why they getting off of Cole Anthony is the turnovers. I mean, you look at Desmond Bane and also Tyus Jones, they do not make a lot of mistakes, and that is going to be huge for this team. So when you talk about a team that is so defensive minded and you're trying to limit the number of possessions that are in a game, you can't be turning the ball over a lot. And I think that's where one of the biggest things that maybe people might be overlooking with Desmond Bane is, and especially Tyus Jones, is number one, those are not the flashiest of names, right? But they are really great players, and that offense was really struggling last year and the last couple of years, but especially last season. So I think when you put all that together, it's exciting to see what this team can do.
Let's take a quick break from our conversation with Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel. Tell you a little bit more about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drinks, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're seeking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. It is so hot outside. I swear, looking at the sun, just even thinking about being outside, just being outside for like 5 minutes drains me of all my energy. It makes it so hard to get up and go and get back to work. 5 Hour Energy helps you get that extra pep in your step, that extra boost you need to get back on the golf course, to get back to doing whatever you're doing and make the most of your day. Whether you're playing golf or doing anything else, golf is all about good times with good people. Summer's all about good times with good people and good flavors. Of course, the grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse to go without chasing down the beverage cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Yeah, and like obviously so much of this is so focused on offense. And, you know, I think none of us probably thought Desmond Bane was even going to be on the radar as available. Like, you know, I'm sure when you were looking at potential things the Magic could do this offseason just to kind of prepare yourself, you were thinking a lot of things that I was thinking. It's like, oh, they'll do the obvious thing like Anthony Simons, Colin Sexton, guys that might have that they might have to sacrifice some of their defense to bring in that kind of shooting. And honestly, I think what Anthony Simons and Colin Sexton ended up going for kind of speaks more to how the NBA feels about their stats and who they are as players than anything else. And Desmond Bane is the guy that you spend your money on. Obviously, though, like a good shooter isn't enough because the Magic did it with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope last year. Like there was no reason to think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope would not work for the Orlando Magic. And some of that is, yes, Paolo goes out 5 games into the season. You lose one of your playmakers. You have fewer playmakers. And I think that was a general concern for the Magic. The fact that Desmond Bane can create a little bit, I think is different, but the Magic are still kind of doing this, you know, you mentioned it by committee, this point guard by committee thing. I've been joking with people. I think I've made this joke with you. The Magic are kind of moneyballing the point guard position. They don't have
They're making it up in the aggregate.
They can make it up in the aggregate. Is that still a concern? Because, like, look, we'll get to Tyus Jones here in a minute. I do want to speak more specifically about Tyus. That starting lineup is Desmond Bane, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter. Like that's non-negotiable. Those, yeah. You know, that's 3 $30 million player. That's 4 $30 million players. And then Wendell Carter is going to be on the last year of his sweetheart deal before his extension kicks in. Can the Magic still make that work, you know, with this version of a spot-up shooter as opposed to the one they had last year?
Yeah, I think so. I think the most interesting thing is not just from a player standpoint, but also from a coaching standpoint are going to be those late game situations. You know, obviously they have a ton of trust in Paolo taking that last shot, but more so like the final 2 or 3 minutes of a close game. I go back to those turnovers, being a mistake for Orlando at times last season. And we can talk to Jamal Mosley and his timeouts and lack of timeouts and whatnot. But I think when you put all of that together, you want someone who you can trust to have the ball in their hands late. And I think when you don't have that true point guard, it's not entirely clear. Like ultimately, let's be clear, because they don't have that, because they don't have like a Chris Paul or someone like that, it's going to be Paolo and Franz. It's just going to be those guys, with bringing the ball down the court and
You
running
want the
the
ball in
offense.
your best player's hands anyway. It's
Right. That's who you
want
wanted to be in. Right. So I think maybe that's the only area really, but I don't think it's going to necessarily be a glaring issue compared to some of the other roster problems. Obviously we go back to what Paolo told the Washington Post a couple of years ago, but I still think just how much Desmond Bane's going to help Paolo, Franz, and we still have to see what Jalen Suggs is going to look like on the other end of this in regards to his need, how he handles that and what he can do and how he plays. He says he's not going to change his style, but what that looks like. And then, of course, their ability to stay healthy. But I still think Desmond's going to help them out so much. And, obviously it might seem weird at first. They have to build that chemistry just because they do have connections and they're familiar with each other. It's going to take some time, I think, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like I think, we'll dive. I want to dive a little bit into like what went wrong-ish in last season. I think Paolo's injury coming that early in the season was a much bigger deal than people give credit for. Like I've kind of said this, if Paolo gets hurt in December instead of late October, you're dealing with a much different team, a team that's like established roles. They kind of know what they're trying to do. They're not trying to figure each other out. The fact that they got hurt, that he got hurt that early and they had to kind of completely flip the team on its head a little bit, I think had a bigger impact on the season than people give credit for. But, again, we'll never know. You got to play the cards you're kind of dealt, that things happen during the course of a season. 82 games is a long time in that regard. But obviously kind of sticking on this point guard part, we saw how vital Corey Joseph was, just having that little bit of stability. And as much as we all love Corey and we all love Corey, he is on the back end of his career. He is, I remember when they signed Corey Joseph and people were like, why did the Magic sign Corey Joseph? It's like, he's just there to be a good veteran in the locker room. If the Magic are using him for any significant minutes, that means something's gone very terribly wrong. And I think
guess what? And guess what happened?
Yeah, exactly. But it's still undeniable how good he was for the team. Like even people who are like, why is Corey Joseph starting? We're like, well, he's actually been really good for the Magic. He stabilized them. Like they don't have much of a choice at this point. How important then is bringing in Tyus Jones, who falls into the category. Like I was telling people when they were like, the Magic are going to go after Tyus Jones. I was like, well, if the Magic wanted Tyus Jones, they probably would have had him already. He kind of fell into that category. We've talked about him for so many years. How important then is what Tyus Jones, how important is it potentially what Tyus Jones brings to this roster to help kind of stabilize them in those moments?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of national audience surprised to see Corey Joseph not only still in the NBA, but actually starting the playoffs at his age. It was fun to think about, how he was in the finals all those years ago with the Spurs, and here he is in 2025 playing playoff basketball. At the same time, I think it really goes to show just how badly they needed someone to just take care of the ball and make the right decisions. Like I'm not saying Paolo and Franz made the wrong decisions, but another person to have the ball in their hands that they trusted. Like that was my biggest thing going into this offseason. Get Corey Joseph, but a little bit younger, right? Like get the type of player that's not going to make a lot of mistakes and can do a little bit more on offense. And that's Tyus Jones, right? I think, they had been connected and tied to Tyus for so long. I think to your point about, when we were going to the offseason talking about different names and some of the names were, quote unquote, seemed so obvious. The Tyus Jones one seems like you're kind of, you're going for that extra scoop of ice cream that, here's a little sweet treat. And they did it. They actually, holy shit, they got Tyus Jones. I don't know if we can curse on the show or not, but it was like when that name popped up, it was like, oh my God, after all these years, they like you said, if they wanted him already, they would have gotten him, and they did actually get him. And I think it says a lot about the mindset of this front office and Jeff Waltman. Like, the expectations for him, I think from the fan base were so low just to improve the offense somehow. And it wasn't just they got Desmond Bane, but they actually went after a guy that they had been connected to for some time, and they got him not at a heavy price, $7 million, I think was the 1-year deal or whatever it was. And they obviously went in and hard capped themselves the first apron to do that signing. But I don't think that's a huge deal right now. But I think by adding Tyus, you're upgrading at Cole Anthony, right? And you're also upgrading on Corey Joseph, but in a different way, right? You're getting a younger Corey and a less turnover-friendly Cole. And you're getting a guy who can shoot the ball really well as well. And that's going to help their bench. Because right now, I think the bench, before they signed Tyus, you were kind of looking at the bench and thinking, unless Anthony Black makes a major leap, that bench was going to be rough in terms of scoring. And I think adding Tyus to that bench unit is going to help them a lot. Now we got to see what happens with Mo Wagner and his recovery and whatnot. But the fact that they have been tied so long to Tyus and they went for it and did it and got him, I think says a lot about their mindset entering this year and the future.
Yeah, and I want to get to maybe where some of the trouble spots are on this roster. I've been kind of criticized for harping on them and kind of chilling the vibe a little bit. But I mean, we should be real. This is still a team that has some flaws and some things to prove, and I want to get to that. But let's go to that point. I don't want to get into the hard capping and all the cap stuff. That is a next year problem.
Bird rights.
Yeah. And trying to explain to people that just because you have bird rights doesn't mean you can exceed a hard cap. You can only exceed a soft cap with bird rights, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to be doing some apron math. We'll be doing some tax math in February. But Jeff Weltman has been criticized for kind of sitting on his hands a little bit. Everyone killed him in February for not doing anything at the deadline. I think we both, you talked to him afterward and kind of got the skinny that, maybe he's held a little bit over a barrel and didn't have much bargaining leverage. I would argue that the believed imminent return of Jalen Suggs was probably viewed as a big kind of shock to the system, and the Magic didn't want to add another shock to the system. And, again, the Magic played pretty well when Paolo, Franz, and Jalen Suggs were all on the floor together. 4-2 was a pretty good record. And two of those losses were one of those losses was that back-to-back in Memphis, and the second loss was the game that Paolo got hurt. So you're not going crazy over those losses. 4-2 is still too small of a sample to say anything definitively anyway. So I understood. I've always been of the mind that as long as you're acting rationally as a man, as an executive, I'm going to wait to see how the chessboard plays out. And turns out this Desmond Bane thing popped up, whether it was something they worked on for months and finally wriggled him free, or this was just something that they worked on after looking at what happened during the playoffs and said, this is the move we're making. What do you think of the way that the Magic front office attacked this offseason and again, change things up? They were maybe always trending to be a second apron team next in the 2027 season anyway, because of the contracts that they were handing out. But what does it say about this front office that they looked at this team after the season they had, after the playoffs that they had, and were able to kind of knock down a lot of things that they needed to get done?
Yeah, I think the word is surprising. Not only did they do one thing, right? They didn't just do the Desmond Bane trade and call it a day. Because last year they signed KCP and said, that's that. Let's roll it back, or let's run it back with what we got. They went out, made a huge trade. They traded a player that they signed last year as their biggest offseason acquisition in KCP. They traded a player in Cole Anthony, who's an absolute fan favorite, and besides Jonathan Isaac, had been on the roster the longest, one of the longer tenured players for this young squad. They gave up some first-round picks for it, and as you've talked about those picks and whatnot in the context surrounding them, but they went into their draft capital a little bit. So those three things right there says a lot about what they said all the right things at exit interviews, right? They wanted to improve the team. They wanted to augment this roster and attack their weaknesses, and that move right there was oh my gosh, they actually did something right after as the person who spoke to Jeff the last 2 trade deadlines and was writing about why they didn't make any deals or sit on their hands or whatever. It was kind of like surprising for my first time covering a deal like that to actually see that go down.
It was
And
their first. Just not to cut you off, but it was their first trade where they acquired a player they were actually keeping since I believe Bol.
It had been a while because I hadn't covered a trade on the beat, and this was my second trade deadline, second season, now entering my third on the beat. So the fact that they did that after they said what they were going to do, just because you say something doesn't mean it's going to happen. They went out and got a great player in Desmond Bane. And then when free agency started, they wasted no time in getting Tyus Jones to come off the bench. They re-signed Mo Wagner. They extended Paolo Banchero. They drafted Jace Richardson. They used second-round draft capital to take Noah Penda. Like, whether or not Noah works out, which, by the way, he looked great at Summer League. I mean, he was moving so well for his size. We can talk about that if we want. But the fact that they even used second-round draft pick capital and moved up in the second round to take a player is not like them at all. Like, that's so surprising. Even this week, they signed Orlando Robinson to a 2-way contract, a 6'10" center, and they cut Ethan Thompson from a 2-way contract. Those are such minor moves that won't impact the grand scheme of their success next season, but it's just the latest, oh, okay, this Jeff Weltman is serious about, like, we know they're serious, but now they're showing it. Like, they're not, they still have two-way spots, and what they're going to do with that, we'll see. But they actually signed a center, which they should have done last season. Again, we don't know what they tried to do and what they didn't do, but when the G League team traded for Colin Castleton, I thought, oh, that makes sense. And then they never signed him, and he went to Toronto and played on a bunch of 10 days and got more NBA minutes with the Raptors than the Magic, which, again, it's a 2-way player. It's not going to be.
And then Orlando Robinson ended up replacing him.
Exactly. So the fact that they went out and signed a 2-way center and then also cut Ethan Thompson, who, again, it's Summer League, but he didn't look the best. Ethan's a great kid, by the way. But
yes,
it's just after when you add all the things all the things you add up, it's like, oh my gosh, this is serious. And I haven't even mentioned Joe Prunty or Sham God. Like, you look at this offseason, they said they were going to go after it, both Jamal Mosley and Jeff Weltman, and they went after it and got after it. And they, on paper, have put together a team that could be really successful when you consider, even if the East was healthy, it would be successful. And now that it's wide open, it's theirs for the taking, whether this year, next year, or in the future, because they are still so young. So again, when you look at the issues last year with last year's team, they've hypothetically upgraded their roster. They've gotten the right pieces. They improved their coaching staff. And what that looks like on the court will be different, but it's on paper. Now the pressure kind of shifts away from that front office, because I think there were a lot of fans, rightfully so, after 2 trade deadlines with no moves, that were quite frankly a little upset, and that kept building. So I think
they were eager.
Exactly.
Eager to see this team take the next step.
Yeah, and they not only took that step, but I think they took a few steps for sure.
Yes. I want to thank Jason once again for hopping on the show. He will be back with us tomorrow. We did not air the entire conversation in one episode. We're going to split this up into a couple parts. It's all about stretching out content here in late July and early August, friends. So we're going to stretch this out a little bit throughout the week. So we'll talk again with Jason on our next episode of Locked On Magic. You can always check out Jason's great work at the Orlando Sentinel. Does a great job covering the team, as well as check him out on Twitter at TheRealBeede. That's The Real Beede, Beede, on Twitter or on Blue Sky as well. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You, of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. We talk, I don't know if we got to it in today's episode, because again, I edit what I put into each episode after I record kind of my ins and outs here. We do talk a lot about Tyus Jones and what he's going to bring to the team and the point guard position in general. That's something I've been writing a lot about on my Patreon page. You can find that again at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub, including a video breaking down Tyus Jones as a passer. It's really, I had a lot of fun watching him pass and watching his assists and seeing what he's going to bring the team. Again, check that out. And thank you for your support. Now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, go make Locked On NBA your second listen of the day, because despite it being the offseason, Locked On NBA is still going strong. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back again tomorrow, either tomorrow or early Tuesday, or in the middle of the day, Tuesday or Wednesday, to chat a little bit more with Jason Beatty about the upcoming Magic season. Until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.